Welcome to the podcast about being unmessable with, no matter what life throws at you. Here is your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio.
Welcome to Be Unmessable With, the podcast. I'm your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio. And today I wanted to talk about something that I have found messes with most people, and that is money. Money, not so much money itself, like dollars or cents or bills or digits, but more people's relationship to money. What does that mean? If you have a relationship to money where you never have enough, it really doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank because you are going to be looking at that dollar amount through a lens of scarcity. And whenever you have a lens skewing your view, you don't actually see what's there. You see whatever's there by virtue of the lens. So for instance, if my glasses were yellow in tint and I were looking at anything, it would have a yellow haze to it. So if somebody, showed me a green mug or blue mug, I would say, okay, that's a green mug because I'm coloring it with my lens. And even though in reality the mug might be blue, I am convinced that it's green because what I see is only what's available through my lens. So now let's map this onto other areas of your life, specifically money. If the lens that you have for money is, rich people are greedy and I don't want to be like that, then you're going to have a lid on how much money you can make because you don't want to be identified with somebody who's greedy. And if you have a lens that's, like, oh, money will come, then you might be somewhat irresponsible about money because you just kind of look at the amount of dollars owed on your credit card bill thinking, oh, something will happen. And then you end up in debt and with the high interest. And, there's a ramification to any lens. So, one of the things that I recommend doing when I work with people on their relationship to money is, first of all, getting the facts about their money. Most people have no idea how much money they actually have. They don't track it. They just sort of have a sense that they're spending less than they're making, or they're spending more than they're making, or their credit card bill is higher than it should be, or where it should be. So they're not dealing with actual reality. They're dealing with a version of reality. I would say it's like an interpretation or a story or a narrative around what's happening, not what's happening itself. So if you can get the facts clear, and that takes some doing because sometimes people's money is all over the place in terms of different accounts, or maybe they have a 401k, or maybe they don't, maybe they have a Roth IRA, or maybe they have a savings account, maybe they have certain debt with certain credit cards or a mortgage, and they're not even counting the mortgage part of it or the asset called the house or the apartment. So in order to get a reality check around your money, you have to list it all out and come up with either a spreadsheet or do it on a yellow pad. Just make a list of all your money. What is the balance in your checking account? What is the balance in your savings account? What is the balance in your retirement account if you have a retirement account? If you don't, you need to start one right away. That's a whole other conversation. But what is the balance in your retirement account? What is the performance of each of those things? So is your savings account earning a good amount of interest, or are you in a low yield savings account, which is a wasted opportunity because nowadays you can put your money into a bond or a short term vehicle that'll make you 4 and 5% given interest rates right now. So are you missing out on money that you could be making with some of the money that you have in whatever accounts that you have it in? So how much money do you have in all areas and accounts? How much money do you make? Sometimes this is, very simple because you get a W-2 or a standard paycheck and you know exactly how much it is every week. But sometimes it's a little bit more difficult if you're a freelancer or a small business owner. You have to sort of take an average of the last 6 months or the last year and average it out monthly so that you can see what is your average monthly intake in terms of money. And sometimes it's a combination of both. But again, this is where you've got to get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper or onto a spreadsheet on your computer. So you get all of this information out. How much money do you make? How much money do you owe? What interest rates are you paying on the money that you owe? Is there an opportunity to consolidate certain debts and reduce your interest rates? That's probably not the case with the mortgage right now, given interest rates right now, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a way to do that with your credit cards. How much money are you earning, including interest and dividends? If you have stocks, if you have a portfolio of stocks, for those of you that are lucky enough to have that, then you want to look at what is the return I'm getting? What are the dividends that I am making from the stocks that I'm holding? And if you're not familiar with how stocks work, if you own a share of Apple, let's say, over the year, you get paid 92 cents for every share that you own. So if you own 1,000 shares, then you're going to make $920 for the year just for owning those shares. So it's important to look at your portfolio. If you do have a stock portfolio, are you involved with dividend paying stocks, and how much are the dividends? Because, the dividend on a stock called Home Depot is very, very high, much higher than Apple. And that might be a good stock for you to start to build a position in. So there's a whole world of money, and it's not just like I have enough or I don't have enough, but mostly people's relationship is skewed by some story or narrative that they have about money that is likely inherited either from your parents or from culture or from TV. So the first step to having power with your money is get related to the reality of your money. If you go to my website, in fact, I'll put a link at the end of this episode for a worksheet that you can use to actually get a reality check around your money. So once you have the reality of anything, by the way, this is not just with money, this is with anything. You want to, impact your well-being, you better get clear about your cholesterol and your blood pressure and your weight and your body fat content or whatever those measures are. So whatever area you want to impact, you first have to get really, really powerfully related to the reality around that area. And money is one of those areas that triggers people so much they don't want to know. It's almost like, oh, I just hope my credit card bill isn't more than what I think it's going to be, rather than actually dealing with what's so. When you know what's so, you can impact it and move the needle to whatever it is that you're creating. So the first step is get related to the reality. And then you can ask yourself, okay, what do I want to create in this area? And again, this translates to more than just money, but if we're speaking just about money, what is my vision for myself, for my family, for my business around the area of money? What is it that I want? If I look 5 years out, what do I want my finances to look like? Or a year out, depending on how you want to do this exercise. But you got to go far enough out that it can get to a space of a blank canvas where you're actually creating what you want your financial life to look like versus predicting what it's going to look like based on what you have now. So it's got to be sort of like you got to get to nothing so that you can create what you really want. And once you do that, maybe it's in a year from now, I want to be making twice as much money, but working half the amount of time. So if that's the case, then you start to backwards plan what kind of results would have to happen 3 months earlier than the end of that year for that to be a done deal, and 3 months before that. And how do I implement systems now or practices now that will get me to that vision or that goal? I have a client who doesn't make a lot of money, but for her, she was really having trouble saving money because she didn't have a big paycheck. She made one small change. She stopped buying coffee and she started making coffee at home. And she's been able to consistently put away money every month because you have no idea what you're spending your money on, which is another thing you need to track. What do you spend your money on? I would recommend doing a 2-week tracking of everything you're spending your money on, from coffee to taxis to the subway to laundry to anything that you spend money on. Have a detailed diary or tracking of every penny you're spending so that at the end of 2 weeks, you can start to bucket and see where your money's going to. And is that spending practice something that's serving you? Is it the smartest thing in the world to be spending $40 a week on coffee when you could be putting $40 a week into a high interest savings account? That over time adds up to, almost $500 for the year. And then you've got interest on that, and you can start building a stock portfolio if you wanted to do that with $500. You could buy a few shares of Apple, you could buy a share of Microsoft, which pays a dividend. I mean, there's all sorts of strategies that you can implement, but not until you know what's so. What are you making? What are you spending? What do you have? What do you owe? And then look to the future to create what your vision is. What do you want your life to look like when it comes to money? And then we can do the work to backwards plan structures and systems that'll fulfill on that vision. And that's kind of the basics that I would say I'd begin with if you are somebody who wants to impact the area of money in your life and your relationship to money. Being able to figure out where your view came from, where your lens came from is interesting, but it's not really required to transform your relationship to money. All that has to happen is get related to the reality without the lens. Deal with the facts, Jack. They used to say that on Dragnet, it's just the facts, just the facts. So if you can get to the facts about money with regard to your money, then you have access to impacting the reality of your money. And your relationship to money will transform just as a natural expression of doing that work. So if you have questions or you're learning something from this episode, please make sure to message me and let me know what you're discovering or any questions that you have. I answer every email, and I will put the link in the show notes for the worksheets that'll support you in getting a handle on the reality of your money so that you can fulfill your vision in the area of your money. Until next time, this is Josselyne Herman-Saccio. Be unmessable with.